I'm Anthony Best. This pedal board sucks, and it's my fault, and I'm here to tell you why. So, the board itself, perfectly fine. It's built by West Coast Customs. It was built exactly to the spec I asked. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end up stripping this board down, and I'm going to try to make a series of videos as we go. As to, I'm going to sit down and explain why I built it the way I built it, the lessons I've learned, and then you'll see in another series of videos a new board that I'm going to work on as a daily use board, and give you my perspectives on how to go about building a pedal board that will work for you, so you don't end up spending a bunch of money like I did to get a board that does exactly what I set out to do, but it's not really what's actually going to work. So let's strip this board down. Let's take a look at the board itself. And what went wrong is I tried to do too much on one space, and it's just not usable for a number of reasons that I'm gonna cover as we go through this. So let's take a look at it. All right, so why does this board suck? It sucks for a number of reasons, and some of it is just, one, there are too many pedals on this board for it being a flat surface. So one of the things that occurs is when trying to use pedals that are up here on this second row of things, it's hard to get to these buttons. I will occasionally change some of the settings on these on the first row, and that happens for two reasons. When I wanted when I designed when I ordered the board from West Coast Customs. I laid it out. This was the size I wanted to accommodate all of the pedals that I was planning on using. And I had planned out that, again, I wanted it to be this long to handle these 4 Strymon pedals at the top. That was the basis for everything else, and everything from the second row was going to be easily changed in and out. These 4 pedals were going to be part of the board no matter what, and I wanted them up here and out of the way. But one of the reasons why it's difficult to get to these buttons is because of some of these pedals, and this is something I didn't think about when I was planning the board, are top mount jacks, and some of them you can see are side mount jacks here. And so there are 2 slots cut into this board. There is one slot that's up here at the top. It's from a level perspective, it's actually right where these output jacks are on this back row. But it's a little too deep into the board this way, and there's another set of runs that are back here. But there's also some places within this, like for instance right here, the slot continues, but it doesn't go all the way through the board. So on like a traditional pedal train board, everything runs all the way through. There may be a crossbar somewhere it's similar to that, so I can't run all of these cables underneath. Like for example, this cable is sticking up like this because I can't run it underneath. The other issue with this board, which doesn't have anything to do with the board itself, is I chose to use Mogami Gold cable, which is pretty thick, and again, I chose that specifically because I've got a lot of pedals running here, and I wanted the highest quality cables that I could get to keep the signal with all of these different connections. But this cable is not very flexible, so each one of these cables is your standard 6-inch cables. These were not cut and custom ordered to fit, and the cable's not very flexible, so you can see that there are just cable drapes all over the place, that even on a professional style board that was laid out the way I planned it, that these things are just all in the way. So the board sucks because I can't use it the way I want to. So What I'm going to do, as I said in the intro, is I'm going to take this apart, and we're going to first thing we're going to do is rebuild this board into something a bit more manageable, and that means I'm going to lose some of the pedals off of this board, or I'm going to have to reorganize things. But the first step of what I do is I'm going to again rip this board apart. I'll show you what's underneath, and again kind of point back out how this board was set up, and these are things to consider if you're going to go order a board. And I do recommend West Coast Customs. They're a great or West Coast Pedalboard. They're great people to work with, and they did again exactly what I asked them for. These are just things you should be considerate and be very specific as you plan out your board. All right, the board has been stripped down, so now you should be able to see a little easier what I was talking about with the slots in this board. So there are 2 slots in this board, but they don't run all the way through. So you could see if you were trying to run a pedal behind something and you ran into one of these slots on the smaller slots here, or this wider slot in the middle, those cable runs can become a problem. So that was one of the things that that I did wrong in this. Let's flip the underneath, and I'm going to talk about one of the things that I did get right on this board, and that is the power. So I put 2 Strymon power supplies underneath, and this has all of the power that I could ever need for this board. As I build the entirely new board, I think I'm going to leave these here, and I may use a One Spot Pro on the new board, or I could take these off and move these on. These are just simply affixed to the bottom of this board with dual lock Velcro. These things are not going anywhere, and so you can see from what I have on the board here is there are simply 2. There's the power output up here, and then there's simply an into the board and out from the board. Now, when I was planning this board, again, was planning always this to be used 99% with this matchless, which does have an effect loop. However, I run all of my effects just right into the front of the amp, so I didn't really at the time think I was going to need anything for the effects loop, but I really shorted myself with the option in order to do that right from the board. I believe each one of these input jacks on the side was an extra 20 or 40 bucks when I was having the board built. And I should say the price of this board, I think all said and done, with the custom dimension that I wanted, the custom Tolex, the option for the light and the switch. This board was around 450 bucks, so this was not cheap. It is really well built, and it was worth every dime. I just needed to be much more specific about where I wanted these slots cut, and I also needed to have a much more set board on the pedals that I wanted. So as I talked before, pedals which have the input jacks on the side, obviously those need to be in a spot where the slot is going to be. So I really needed to know exactly the order of the pedals that I was going to use, and where those slots were going to be in order to use a board that's this rigid from a specifications around getting these here. Now, the other thing that can be done in these situations is having the cables custom made, or being able to solder your own cables, which I could do. I didn't do for this project. Again, let me show you one of these Mogami gold 6-inch cables with the fairly thick flat sides, so even if you squish these things together, they don't collapse very well. I'm not sure how well this is going to translate the video, but these are really thick cables, and so the signal runs great, and if you're working on a very linear board, these will be perfectly fine. So again, if I was having a pedal, 2 pedals sit next to each other with top mounted jacks, things like this KHDK pedal and all the Strymon stuff have these top mounted jacks. These work great, and again, making sure you know where to slot those things in, and not where where these rails are going to hit. So that's the first thing about this existing board, why it sucked, or it sucked in the way that I had it set up, and I designed it wrong. And what we're going to try to do is build a scaled down version of this. Now, in the new version of the board that I'm going to have, I will be having a riser, and I'm going to have a MIDI switching system. I don't know yet, as I'm filming this first section of this video, whether I'm going to put that new MIDI switcher onto this board, or whether I'm just going to try to reorder the pedals in a way that makes more sense, to get to something that I can use while I go and design out the new board and work with, I'll go ahead and say I'm going to work with Vertex Effects and Mason over there. He's local to me here in Oakland, and if you've watched any of Rhett Shull's videos, I think watching what he did with his board was a big eye-opener for what I want to do. So I will try to put a link to that Rhett Shull video and to Vertex in this video, so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm going to be working on. And so that's going to be it for this first video of why my pedal board sucks. And over the course of this weekend, I'll probably be shooting some additional videos to talk about what I'm going to be doing with this board in order to make it usable in the short term, as I work with Mason and Vertex to get a new board built that I can live with.